What's up, gentlemen? This is Rising Phoenix Podcast, the podcast about how to rise up after your divorce. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. Let's get into it. Joining me today is Evan Davis from performancepotential.com. Evan, why don't you jump right into it? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So thanks for having me. I personally have been coaching men for a little over 4 years now, and it's coming up on 2 years that I've actually been posting a lot more on social media. So with the advent of TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, I've been focused a lot more on short form content. But I specialize in helping men that are either getting out of breakups, recovering from divorces. I help them get back into the dating game, master areas like online dating, how to approach women, where to meet women, and really ultimately how to, raise women's attraction over time, which I think is a big thing because a lot of the guys I work with, they find that they can attract some women, but maybe getting them to be perpetually more interested over time is a little bit difficult for them. So yeah, I've been working with men for a little over 4 years now, and I've been on social media for about 2 years now, and it's been an interesting ride so far.
I'm sure. How did you get started? Like, what motivated you to do this?
Well, I think like most people, it's kind of a self-discovery journey at first. You go through some tough times yourself. You go through a breakup. You feel the woman that you're really into pulling back, and you really want to understand why that happened, and ultimately regain that control over your life and see what you can do, moving forward to make sure it doesn't happen again. So that was about 6 years or so ago for me, and then there was about a 2 year kind of self-discovery process where I really had to learn the ins and outs of dating, understand women. And then just kind of as a side note too, like after getting on social media, I've actually worked with a good amount of women as well. Like I've coached a good amount of women, and I've gathered a lot of feedback from women too, which I think is helpful to bring back the guys. So I think out of the about 475,000 followers I have, a little under 200 are actually women because women are really interested. Some women are really interested to hear a guy's opinion on things.
Yeah, I'm sure that's valuable intel for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk online dating apps, online, whatever you, I mean, really it's apps at this point, right? So we're going to talk that today. I want to start off with a caveat, and this is my third episode on dating. And I realize that as people, we like to partner. We want to partner. It's a very natural thing to want, to desire. However, uh, doing what I do, I see a lot of men diving right back into another relationship, and it usually ends up to be more painful when that one ends, and it typically does when it's a quote unquote rebound. It can be anecdotally more painful than the actual divorce itself. So I realize that this topic, it might seem like I'm being a bit hypocritical because I preach this all the time, but I'm not, because I think dating is important, and dating is something that we all need in some ways, right? If we were trying to find that mate in life. But I caution all of you to please make sure that you're ready. So with that said, once they are sure that they are ready, what are some of the things that they can avoid doing when they sign up for Bumble, Tinder, Match, whatever that they choose to get on?
Yeah, and you make a really good point too. I think, as you mentioned before, men get into dating and they really jump into online dating or, dating apps or even getting back into the dating game itself. You make a really good point. I mean, ultimately, if somebody is coming into the equation feeling a little bit damaged, a little bit broken, maybe not ready to date, if it doesn't work out with that next person, it's kind of reopening that wound. It's reopening that scar that you have from the previous relationship. Another thing is, if you're not truly ready to date, it's really not a beneficial thing for the woman that you're trying to date either, because you're not really bringing your whole self to the equation. So I
True.
second that. I think that there's a lot of guys who come to me that maybe it is a little bit too soon, and I'll give them kind of a game plan to work on, over the next, 2, 3 months to get themselves back into a better position before they really, continue to date too. So you make a good point. Now, in terms of the online dating piece, the first and foremost thing is we as guys, we hate to take pictures. Like we're not really going out to the restaurant with our friends, to the bars with our friends, to sporting events and saying, "Hey, let's take a picture," right?
Right.
So one of the most difficult things for men and one of the biggest pitfalls I see men making is just having very old pictures.
Mm.
The bottom line is we're all at different parts of our life, and we have to be honest with who we're portraying ourselves to be, but we also have to be putting our best foot forward, right? So I think just having pictures that are up to date and not old are one of the biggest struggles that I see men, having. Now, to combat this, there are a couple ways, and I have an online dating course that I walk guys through, but there's two different schools of thought for hiring somebody to take pictures for you. There's a lot of guys that say, should I hire someone who's actually a photographer who's trained to do this? And then there's people who say, should I just get a friend to do it? Should I just do it on my phone? My rule of thumb with this is do not have more than two very, very, very high quality LinkedIn type pictures on your dating app profile, right? What happens is if you find a photographer who's going to take these good shots for you, these headshots for you, it's going to look very overproduced if you have more than one or two of those. I would say two absolute maximum on your profile. So I would say you should have one very high quality picture on there, maybe from somebody who is like a photographer grade person. But ultimately, if you just kind of put your ego to the side, put your pride to the side, and you grab a buddy and say, hey, listen, man, I've got to get some new updated photos. I'm going to bring a couple different shirts. We're going to go to a couple different areas in the city. We're going to go to a couple different places that I like. Take 4 or 5 pictures for me. Literally within 2 to 3 hours in one afternoon, you can get your whole profile taken care of. And it is going to exponentially improve the types of women that you're matching with, because really it is like your marketing. And I break this down a lot for the guys I work with too. Attraction and dating apps are like a business's marketing. Dating is like sales, and a relationship is like customer service. So if the front end of the process is really broken and your marketing is not good, your website, your branding, all these things are not good, it's really going to limit people from knowing what they're getting into. So that's what I would say most men struggle with, is just having the right pictures, because we don't take pictures a lot as guys.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I kind of struggle with that myself. It's just I think it messes up or seemingly messes up your experience. Like, oh, let's stop and take a selfie or whatever. And it can definitely sort of throw a wrench into, or can feel like it throws a wrench into to your experience and what you're experiencing in the moment. So, but what are some other things that guys makes mistakes that they make besides the pictures thing that seems to be a somewhat easy fix? What are some other things?
Great. So I think it makes sense to talk a little bit more about the types of pictures that guys should
Mm,
have. And then we can talk about their prompts and their bios as well. So the types of pictures that guys should have, I think we have to first start off with what they should avoid. And I ran an interesting test. So I put a video out on TikTok. I put a video out on Instagram, and I said, hey, listen, guys, I'm going to do maybe, I think I had like 70 plus guys that came through that actually sent me their profiles. I said, I'm going to do free profile reviews. Send it to this number. I have a texting number people can reach out to me at. Send me your pictures. I'll give you one message of follow up and feedback, and here's what you should change. The vast majority of men, when I looked at their pictures, too many selfies.
mm,
Immediately, you have to remove the selfies. And if you do have a selfie and it is a good one, please do not have more than one. A selfie indicates that you don't really live a good social life. You don't really have a good social life. And whether guys do or don't, most men still lack the good pictures that we talked about before to actually get on their profile. So please get rid of selfies. If you have a picture of yourself without a shirt on, please make sure it's something conducive to not having a shirt on. You're at the beach or you're on a boat.
right.
Please, no shirtless mirror pics. Please, no mirror pics in general. I don't know why I saw this other one a lot. Pictures with filters on them. Like I actually saw a lot of guys who kind of had filters on their pictures, and it was a little bit odd. You would be surprised by how many guys actually had that. And then also avoid pictures with, if you can, with your ex, right? With a lot of other women. Some guys think that if they put pictures on there with a bunch of other women, that maybe it will induce some kind of competition. It doesn't work that way. Women don't
Right,
want to see pictures of you with other women, and
right.
guys don't want to see pictures of women with other guys. So just one thing to keep in mind there. Now, in terms of the types of pictures that men should have, if you are in a group picture, I recommend no more than 2 pictures where you are in a group. But if you are going to use a group picture, you need to make sure that you are the highlight of the group. Another thing that guys ask me a lot is maybe guys that are not super tall, or maybe guys that are a little bit shorter. What I recommend on this is don't lie about your height. I mean, ultimately, if somebody's going to meet you in person, they're going to see how tall you are. You have to lead with other things. You have to lead with your confidence, your success, like your fashion, everything else like that. But if you're going to be taking a picture in a group of people and you are a guy who's shorter, it's not going to serve you very well to be standing next to your friend who's 6'4". So
Right.
just one thing to keep in mind with that, because I have shorter guys that I work with that ask me these questions. I recommend having an activity or a hobby picture, doing something that you like. And I also recommend a bit of a family oriented picture. So whether that's one of your group pictures or not, I recommend having like a family oriented picture, or maybe a picture with your pet. But keep in mind, when it comes to the pictures, variety is usually going to be more important than just like focusing on one thing, because nobody wants to talk to a guy that's unilateral or unidimensional.
Yeah.
Women want to see that a guy can offer a lot of different things and lives a very interesting life. So again, I think it's more important for the guys to focus on what to avoid, as opposed to like having all these amazing variety of ones, as long as they're higher quality pictures, right? Because the just on a quick tangent here, when men are looking at dating apps and women are looking at dating apps, women are seeking to disqualify men based on one or two bad pictures, because women are usually dating with more abundance and men are usually approaching dating from scarcity, unfortunately, because we're the ones who have to approach. We're the ones who have to go out and find women. So ultimately, if a guy sees a few really attractive pictures on a girl's profile, they're going to swipe right or they're going to double tap and like her profile. If a woman sees 95% of something that she really likes and 5% of it is something that really spooks her away, she's just not going to like your profile. So sometimes less is more in regards of like disclosing a lot of this information. So I would say ultimately that's my recommendation on the pictures. Now, when it comes to the bios and the prompts, there's one main thing that men are doing drastically wrong, and that is they're trying to educate women about themselves.
Hmm.
And that is not the goal of dating apps, because we have to think about, again, dating apps like marketing for a business. You want there to be a level of understanding that's being conveyed, but a lot of that can be done through your pictures. When you have a bio and you have prompts, you get a limited amount of space and time to convey the things that you like to do, that you do or don't like. But the difference should be your bio and your prompts. I say they should be, respondable and clickable. Don't know if those are words, but I still say it all the time. Respondable and clickable. So you want them to be about topics that women want to talk about. Because again, anybody who's really good at, marketing, understanding business, understanding, even copywriting, understanding how to influence people, they know that it's about the person in front of them and it's not about you. Your profile, although it is you, it should be about getting them interested and wanting to talk to you because they have something in common with you.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, so what are some of those things? I guess you talk about what hobbies, you talk about experiences. Like what are some of those things that you recommend that people do put in those bios?
Yeah, so if I'm thinking about, we'll start off with apps like Hinge or Bumble, because Hinge and Bumble both have the ability to give you prompts. Obviously on Hinge, you can click on those, you can like those. What I recommend on that is Hinge does a good job of giving you things that you can kind of run with, right? Like they give you some categories that you can start with. I don't know why this is the case, and I don't think men really have to care or really want to talk about these things, but women seem to talk about them disproportionately from all the testing that I've done on this. Number one is wine, and number two is astrology. Now, guys are going to be like, I don't want to talk about astrology. It's not about you, dude. Nobody
Uh,
cares. It's
uh,
about sparking a debate of some sort to have a conversation or to agree on something and find something in common. So, how I've seen this work before on a lot of profiles, and I think it also depends a little bit on the age demographic too of the guy, right? But what I've seen interesting is there's a prompt on Hinge that's along the lines of like, let's debate this topic, and you can put in something very vague along the lines of astrology being relevant. And I don't know why, but I've had so many guys have success with this prompt because they're not saying whether they agree. They're not saying whether they disagree. They're just putting a topic out there that women want to talk about. And a lot of women are like, "Nah, I think it's BS." And then there are other women that are like, what's your sign? And a
right.
smart man can weave that conversation
Sure.
down a more interesting topic. Now, I think wine is a good thing to talk about, because I think going to grab wine or going to a wine bar on a first date is a really good, part of a first date,
Sure.
because it's not necessarily like a very expensive dinner, but it's also not going to a dive bar to just have a beer. So I think it's a good like kind of in between for guys. So those are two topics that I see doing very well. Otherwise, I think one out of the three prompts in your profile, it should be something about you, like that can give a pretty good rundown of you, like your ideal day, something like that.
Hmm.
Um, and really what that looks like for you. Cause I think a lot of women can resonate with that and they can agree. Or maybe even like, sports that you like, activities that you like. The other two should most definitely be focused on opening a dialogue and opening a conversation, whether it's about agreeing on something or debating on something.
Hmm.
In terms of the bios, like whether you're on Bumble or Tinder, I think less is more. I think your prompts are going to do a little bit more for you than your bio.
Mm.
In terms of the bio, something that I've seen work pretty well is a little bit of humor, like a little bit of dry sense of humor, but not a lot, because you don't want to, again, if you say something that you think is funny that they don't think is funny, or it's political or controversial, they're just not going to go for it.
Yeah.
So I've seen something to the degree of like a small humble brag, and then a little bit of self-deprecating humor works pretty
Right.
well. So, successful guy who does like XYZ during the day, but still don't know how to set up IKEA furniture, like something stupid like that. It works
Right,
pretty
right.
well.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the tenets that I would put out there. But again, like your pictures are going to be, they're going to be very important in the grand scheme of things.
So, you let's say you throw your line out there, so to speak, and you get a bite. Take me through that process. What are you saying? How long before you ask for a number? How long before you ask for a date? How does that all? How do you navigate? How do you tell guys how to navigate that process?
Yeah. So once you've passed the initial test of your pictures being good enough, and the prompts and the bios being good enough, and you passed all those tests, what I would recommend, and oddly enough, like I think a lot of people would think that asking questions does a little bit better than making statements. But there's a lot of research done on Hinge in particular. What a lot of people don't know is Hinge is actually owned by Match Group, which
Mm.
owns Tinder. And all of these companies, they're
Wow.
like the same company, but the apps function a bit differently. So they have like kind of a conglomerate on the dating app thing. I think Bumble is really the only one that's independent. A lot of the other ones are owned by Match Group, which I think was originally Match.com, which is now has
Yeah.
Tinder, Match.com, all these other companies.
Wow.
What's interesting that I find is, if you think about this because I always go back to business. I always think about, like, it's like sales, it's influence, it's getting somebody interested, piquing their interest, conveying value, and then trying to close that interaction for the number, for the date. What I find is, if you can make a statement, or you can ask for a small like give at the beginning, it's going to open up the conversation. So sometimes I'll start off and I'll open up with women by saying, "Hey, I have a really random question for you." Like, who the hell is not going to answer that?
Right.
If they don't answer that, they're boring, or they don't
Yeah.
like you.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll say like, "Hey, I have a really random question for you." And then I'll wait till they answer. And then I might pivot to something that I would refer to as like a would you rather question.
Mm.
So you can literally Google like a would you rather question, and you can plug and play, and you can do it that way. So that's something that I might recommend. On top of that, what you could really do is, if you pay attention to their profile and their profile is relatively interesting, then I like to leverage something that I call like the insider principle. And like the insider principle is what I refer to as when you two really connect on something that's really like niche. So say that you match with a girl and she's into, I don't know, like holistic health, or she's into functional medicine, functional nutrition, she's into going to the gym, something like that. Please do not make this broad. You cannot make this broad. You can say, "Oh, I see you like to go to the gym, like blah, blah, blah." No, it's not about that.
Right.
You have to say something very specific about a very specific niche topic within that realm. So the way that this would look is, if I met a woman who is like maybe into holistic nutrition or into functional medicine or something, I would say, "Have you ever seen like blank or blank's content before? Like, what do you
Mm.
think about this?" Because like I know that if she's really into that thing, or she's like really down the rabbit hole on that topic, it's like an instant connection at a much deeper level than just saying, "Oh, I see you like to eat healthy. Like, what diet do you follow?" Like, I
Right.
think getting really niche specific on something that you would connect on would work well. Now, to your original question on how long you should be talking or DMing before you close for the number, what I would recommend is, I would say that each of you should send between 4 to 6 messages a piece,
Okay.
back and forth. 3 to 6, I would recommend. One or two, if your profile is really dialed in, you're a really attractive guy, like everything is the way it needs to be, it could work. But we have to understand that, again, women are dating with abundance, women are dating with options, and they're really trying to filter out the men that maybe they don't feel safe around, the
Mm.
men that they're not interested in, and the men that they don't really know super well. So you can close for the number with a few expectations based on how the conversation went. But I think the ideal way to do it would be to say, like, you can either drop her your number, or you can ask for her number, and you can set up the conversation with the expectation of like, "Hey, I've got a lot of things going on over the next 4 or 5 days, but I think it would be great to FaceTime in the meantime, and then
Mm.
if we get along well, like, let's schedule a real date." This is the perfect way to do things, because you're kind of you're taking the ball back into your court and qualifying her. You're saying, hey, listen, like I'm interested in you. I think it would be cool to get together sometime, but I think we should talk a little bit more. So you're handling the objection before she gives you the objection. Because what is going to happen more often than not is after 3 or 4 messages back and forth a piece, some women are going to be like, I like this guy, but I don't know if he's going to be too pushy. I don't know if he's going to be trying to hang out tonight. I don't know if he's going to do all these things wrong that every other man is doing wrong.
Mm.
So ultimately, what I think would be beneficial would be if that guy were to message her and say, hey, listen, I really enjoyed this conversation so far. You seem really cool. It'd be nice if we could get together next week sometime for a drink or food. But in the meantime, like, let's FaceTime. Here's my number. Send me a text. And if she's interested, she'll text you. If she doesn't text you, she was wasting your time. That's why I recommend there's no need to send more than like 6 messages a piece back and forth, because eventually you'll get to a point where the conversation is either good and there's nothing else to talk about, or it kind of dries up and she just doesn't pay attention.
Yeah. Now, in terms of now I know Bumble, they have to message you first. So that aside, that one doesn't count. But let's say you match with someone Tinder or what the fuck ever, and you send out that first text or message, that question, whatever it is that you send. How long are you waiting for a response before you unmatch or move on or whatever? Or do you just stay matched and maybe 6 months later she messages you? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I would just probably stay matched. There's not much of a reason not to. I think sometimes we as guys get frustrated and just get pissed and want to unmatch. But that's kind of us like living through our own ego and getting frustrated and like, screw her, I'm going to delete this. In reality, what I would recommend is if you send a message to a girl and she doesn't respond, this is one of the biggest things that I had to kind of come to grips with as a man, is it's not always because she's not into you. It's because she has a lot of notifications and she just literally owes you nothing. Like she owes you nothing. You know what I mean? Like you guys haven't talked, you haven't had a conversation. We put a lot of stock in matching with a girl who's attractive, when in reality, maybe like 20% of the time they'll get a date. So there's really not a reason to get your expectations super high or get annoyed about it. I just think it's like you got to kind of move on. But what I will say is I've seen my clients have a good amount of success with letting it breathe for like 3 days and then sending another message. Because again, the only reason we won't do that is because of our egos.
True.
Now, I don't consider this chasing. I don't consider this over pursuing, because you haven't even gone on a date yet. So it's not even like, chasing or pursuing is a continuous action. We as men need to understand that we need to do the work and put in the effort at the very beginning to get to the date.
Yeah.
Again, that's the marketing, that's the advertising, the whatever. Then when you get to the date, that's when you're selling. And if the date goes really well and you like each other, then you got to go back and do even amounts of energy and effort. But at the beginning on dating apps, we have to suck it up, and we have to just grin and bear it, unfortunately. But if you dial in your profiles and you're good at the conversation piece, like you're going to be so much better than the vast majority of men, because the vast majority of men stuff that I review, it's really bad. Like it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Like I'm being transparent, and I have to say this because I got to wake guys up. It's bad, and they got to do better, because I know that they have more to offer and they just have to put their best foot forward.
Yeah. So let's take this train on down the tracks, right? We get a date, we go out, and I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. One, it was awesome, and you want to have a second date. How do you approach that? And 2, it wasn't for you so much. And how do you gracefully, and you can tell she's into you because she's wanting it for various reasons, various signs. How do you gracefully say no, thank you? So
Yeah.
both scenarios.
We'll start with that one because it's a little bit easier. What I would recommend with that is, if I'm not super interested in a girl, or my clients are not super interested in a girl after a date, what I will do is I don't even urge my guys to follow up. Ultimately, if you're not super interested and you only went on one date, you don't owe each other anything. There's no reason to follow up. But if she follows up, because most women will follow up if they're very interested in you after the date, or she texts you after, what I would recommend is definitely be straight up. Don't lead people on and just say, hey, listen, like I had a good time with you, but for me, I didn't feel an emotional connection. And that's it.
Bingo.
For me, I didn't feel an emotional connection. But you're a really cool person. Like, good luck with your dating. Like,
Yeah,
that's really it. Now, if you really liked a girl and you want to see her again, there are different schools of thought on this. what I would recommend is there's a bit of a sliding scale depending on how well the date went. There are just certain dates where you know that the woman is very interested in you. She said she wanted to see you again. You were interested in her. Maybe you said you wanted to see her again. What I usually do is after leaving that date and headed back home, whatever, I don't usually text at night because I want to see if she's going to send a thank you text after that date. Because, of course, I, as the man, I picked the place, I paid, I took the lead, I did all those good things. Maybe she said thank you in person. I'm sure she did. Most women will. But I want to see if she texts me first after that date. Now, some people could say it's a game. Some people could say whatever. I don't really think it's a game. Like, I don't feel compelled to text a woman all the time. So why would I text her after the date immediately? Because I think I have to text her.
Right.
So here's what I recommend. If the date went really well and you know it went really well and you know you both want to see each other again, send her a text or a voice note, because a voice note or a voice message is a really powerful tool for guys to use in dating. So I would most definitely recommend doing that if you know your guy who's listening, you're thinking about how to differentiate. Send her a text or a voice note around like the end of your workday the next day. So say you got to work at like 4 or 5 o'clock, you haven't heard from her. You can just shoot her a text message and say, hey, again, it was great seeing you last night. You know, had a really good time. Don't try to schedule the date through that text. Wait to see if she texts back. Then you go back to that like 3 or 4 text message back and forth, you know, talk about something from the date, refer back to something you had in common. And then you say, hey, listen, like I'm tied up for the next 3 days, but on, you know, Friday or Saturday, I'm completely open. Would really like to see you again. How does that work for you? So then you go back in, and then I would recommend you kind of rinse and repeat this for the first couple weeks of dating. And then you're just inevitably going to be talking more, talking on the phone more, and seeing each other more. And that's kind of the beginning part of the process.
And how soon do you like if you get the number, you get off the app, right? You
Yeah,
start texting, yeah. And do you unmatch or does it you just don't care? You just
I just leave it. I just
yeah.
leave it. It's funny sometimes if, when guys leave the match, if maybe they update their profiles, they're going on more dates. Like the women that they're talking to can get a little bit like
That's
insecure
true.
about that.
Yeah, very true.
But you know, we've all seen that. You know, people change their location, people change their bios, their pictures. Like that's life. I mean, until you've gone on a decent amount of dates and you're exclusive and no longer dating other people, you're free to do what you want.
Yeah. And what do you think the percentage is? I think their numbers are out there, but what is it women versus men on these dating apps? Isn't it like 70% women or something crazy like that?
It's more men. It's more men than women.
Right, that's what I mean. I'm sorry. Like 70% men and like 30% women. Is it
On an app like
roughly?
Tinder, yes. That's why I don't really recommend Tinder. I think Tinder's kind of a dumpster fire, if I'm being honest. Tinder's got a lot of fake accounts. It's got a lot of bots. It has way more men than it does women. So, hey, listen, if you're a good looking guy with your profile dialed in, you're paying attention to this podcast, you're learning how to do it the right way, dude, maximize. It's like
Right,
if you're running a business or a brand, you should be on all aspects of social media,
true.
maximize.
Yeah.
But please, guys, you have to treat dating apps like passive income. Again, business reference here.
Yeah.
If you are solely focusing only on dating apps and you never will talk to a woman in person before you meet her, probably not ideal. Because the thing is, if you focus on just dating apps as a means to meeting women, you're always going to be more disappointed than not.
Mhm.
Because women have more investment in you when they meet you in person. And not meeting women in person is just because it's an excuse. Like you're not going out and doing things. You're not going out living that social life, focusing on hobbies, getting out there, like talking to people. And I know, guys, it's not easy. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not saying it's easy. It's a pain in the ass, especially when you're busy, right? Like, we're busy guys. It's not easy to
Yeah.
just go out and want to talk to women. But the thing is, when a woman meets you in person versus when a woman matches with you on a dating app, her level of investment in you is so much higher than it is in a dating app. So again, exhaust all options, be on all mediums, be on all platforms, right? To meet women, but don't take it overly personally if you're not getting like 5 matches a day.
Yeah.
It's like you have to treat it as an option and an avenue, but not the end all be all.
Yeah, so let's cover one more thing on these apps and online dating and that is something you sort of mentioned in passing is scammers and bots and stuff. I feel like I'm a pretty good detective in that regard because I've never been scammed. But what are some things that guys should be looking for that indicate that someone's definitely trying to scam you?
Yeah. If she has really old pictures, if she tries to add you on a form of like social media, that's like sometimes like I'll see like some of these bots and scammers try to ask people for Snapchat or something
Mm,
like that, where it's like, hey, add my Snap, add my Instagram,
Right.
you're wasting your time.
Right.
They're probably just trying to get followers. They're trying to get like you to subscribe to their OnlyFans or get money out of you or something like that.
Right.
So the way to weed out women that are not the real deal, that will not go on a date with you, is again going back to that like 3 to 6 messages back and forth rule, asking for the number. And if she falls off the map after you ask for the number, she was just wasting your time. But to your point, like you said, you've never really fallen for any of the traps, the scams, the catfish, things like that. That's why the FaceTime date is very important too, because you're kind of qualifying her before you go on a real date. And then if maybe you don't have like a quick video call, FaceTime, whatever, if you don't do that before the date and she's not willing to do that before the date, then why is that? Because women who are interested in you, who are willing to take your lead, they don't care. They're like, sure, call me on the phone, text me,
Right.
FaceTime me, let's meet up. This is great. And guys, stop dating women that aren't.
Yeah.
Like, stop dating women that are not with what the program you're trying to build out. Like,
Yeah.
why are you wasting your time with disagreeable women who don't want to hang out with you?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So I find that a lot. Like you'll scan through social media and you watch all these videos that women make about, here are the things a man must do in a first date. And if he doesn't do this, he's a bum. It's like, we all know that you're dating a guy that doesn't do that. Like,
Right.
stop lying.
Yeah.
Like the women
Yeah.
that say, I won't accept any less than dinner on a first date. Stop lying.
Yeah.
If the most attractive guy in the world, or like an athlete or a guy
Right.
that you followed on Instagram said, hey, you want to get coffee? You would literally leave work and go get coffee with them. So don't fall for it, guys. Like, don't fall for the shit you see on the internet where they call you like low investment or a bum if you're not spending $200 on the first date.
Amen. Self-respect, my friend. Self-respect.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, I have been somewhat unselfish during this interview. I've been thinking about you fellas out there because I'm kind of sick of dating, and dating apps are the devil, at least in my experience. I've had some successes, but mostly not so much. But I'm going to shift gears and be a little selfish. It could, because you've mentioned, and we're going to shift away from online dating and apps and stuff. You mentioned get out there and meet women. How the fuck do you do that? I'm 45 years old. I got 2 kids that I have 50% of the time. Where am I going? I always feel like if I see someone hot or attractive or whatever your description is in a grocery store, I feel like a creep approaching them. So I've never done it. Like, where the fuck am I going? How am I doing it? Give it all to me. Give me all your secrets right now.
Okay. The first thing we have to do is smash our limiting beliefs around the fact that women don't want us to talk to them. That's a complete lie. Women don't want certain men who do it wrong to talk to them. Out of all the women I've ever coached, I've coached over 1,000 guys. I've coached hundreds of women. Every woman I've ever coached, if I said to her, if a guy approached you respectfully and was not pushy, was not creepy, was not weird, would you want to do that? Absolutely resounding yes. Do not listen to these idiots on the internet. The women on the internet that say, don't approach me, men are creeps, they're single, they're lonely, they're bitter for a reason. That's why, because they say, we don't want men to approach us. Well, if you're heterosexual, you do want men to approach you. You just don't like the way that men approach you. So again, it goes back to the sales thing. If say that you're in business and you're negotiating with somebody, if they're just really direct and terrible and they don't have your best interest in mind, you're going to be very put off by this person. But if somebody comes in and softens the beaches, like I mentioned earlier, like before asking a question, hey, do you mind if I ask you a random question? So instead of me going and asking an unsolicited question, I primed her to get excited about an interesting question about her. You see how I did that? So it's about framing the way that you're doing things. So if I'm approaching a woman in the gym, in the store, wherever, the first thing that I'm going to say to her is like, hey, listen, I know it's really random. Like, I hate to be this guy, but I did want to tell you, I think you're attractive. You seem really cool. What's your name? You just like get to the fucking point. You know what I mean? Like, guys are coming in like, your shoes are nice. I've seen you around. You seem great. It's like, dude, get to the point. Be direct. You think James Bond is gonna be like, I don't know. You think she wants me to approach her? And again, listen, we're not James Bond. We're not all like 10 out of 10 jacked and rich. It's not about that, but it's about doing it in a respectful way. And I'm not necessarily asking for permission per se, but it's like, you have to be aware of what women are thinking when you approach them. Right. And the other thing is too, this one's an interesting one. I never recommend that guys be just friends with women that they're romantically interested in. I think you're fighting a losing battle if that's the case. But, and a big but on this one, and this one goes to putting your ego to the side too. In the long run, if you build up a friend group and women are in your friend group and they respect you, they don't need to like be attracted to you, they don't need to want to date you. If they respect you, they will introduce you to other women. And this is something that a lot of men, they refuse to do because they think that if they're friends with a woman that like they're friend zoned or they're pretending to be friends. The reality is, if you can get in a larger friend group of people who like to do a lot of different things, you start getting invited to things. The level of trust that exists by meeting someone through a friend is so much higher than on a dating app or cold approaching a woman in person. So if you have to bite the bullet and be cordial or be friends with a woman who maybe you were attracted to at one point, if you can get into like an enjoyable social circle, or you can get into a group of people that are genuinely fun to hang out with, you will meet a woman that trusts you way more than you would meet a woman who doesn't know you from anybody else on the planet. She doesn't know you could be dangerous. You could be the worst guy to be in a relationship with ever. There could be something wrong with you. But if you've been validated by that friend group, or she knows people who you know, it's just way easier. But ultimately, my recommendation for a guy, if you're approaching a woman in person, is again, you have to kind of soften the beaches up front. You have to be aware of the situation. Hey, hate to be this guy in the gym. I just want to tell you, seem cool. You're really attractive. Like, what's your name? And some guys might want to say they might not want to say the attractive thing, but that's up to you. The reason why you're approaching her is because you think she's attractive.
Yeah.
If you tell her that hey, you seem cool, I'm into you, and she's not reciprocating that, she doesn't like you.
Yeah.
So the goal is to not necessarily get the number. The goal is to qualify whether she is interested or not to get the number. Like, why would I want to ask a girl for a number who's not interested? It's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
So I want to know that, like, hey, you seem cool. I've seen you around here a lot. I know this is random and awkward. I hate to be that guy, but like, you seem cool. You're attractive. What's your name? And then if she asks you, oh, blah, 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 what's your name? She starts to ask things about you.
Right.
That's when you know that things are going well. And what I also recommend to guys is, if you're going to approach a woman, other than telling her she seems cool and you're attracted to her, have one thing like in mind that you really want to talk about.
Yeah.
One specific thing, because you don't want to just go over there and ramble. You want to talk about one specific thing, maybe get her feedback, her opinion on it, and then get out. You got to close the interaction after talking for like 2 or 3 minutes and say, listen, it was really nice meeting you. I know you're working out right now. I know you're shopping right now. I know you're out with your friends. So I don't want to linger. I don't want to bother you. Is it cool if I get your number? And then you close for her number. So ultimately, the main reason why men fail with this is because they don't do it.
Yeah.
They don't do it. That's the reality. Most men fail because they don't do it. Not necessarily because women don't want them. It's because they don't do it. When I coach guys, they'll come to me and say, man, I can't meet any women. I'm like, how many women have you talked to in the last month? I don't know, 0. I'm like, well, your numbers are not too good right now. Like, I don't even know what your percentage of talking to a woman to getting to a date would be. Like, you're not talking to anybody. So we have to kind of smash those limiting beliefs around women not wanting to talk to us. There are so many women, especially as guys get older, right? Because like I'm coaching and you're working with a lot of guys who've gone through divorce, who are a little bit older. They're not in their early 20s anymore. Women who are in their 30s and 40s and in that age demographic, if they're single, they are looking for a man.
Yeah, true.
They are like heavily looking for a man. Like, don't fool yourself.
Yeah.
And if you go up and you like her and you approach her, she is going to be really grateful that you approached her if she's into you. Now, if she's not into you, it happens. That's life. But you have to go out and put in the effort.
Yeah, is that part of it too? The expectation that it's a low percentage of success probably, and that's okay as long as you go into it knowing that you still got to take your shot, so to speak. Like, don't you kind of want to set yourself up to deal with the potential rejection?
Yeah, and go in wanting to have a conversation. Like, go in wanting to have a brief conversation and talking about the one topic that you've come up with in your mind that you want to talk about. And if it doesn't work and you don't get the number, she will still be happy that you came up and talked to her respectfully and maybe you gave her a compliment. And you might not be happy that you didn't get the number, but it didn't go abysmally wrong because you did it respectfully. Like, if I went up and I talked to a girl and she was very standoffish, I would probably be annoyed about that. But that's a reflection of where she is in her life. Nobody's going to be rude to a stranger if they were respectful to them, unless there's something wrong with them. Like, unless they're having a bad day. And that's again, like, cool, I don't want to date you. You're rude. Like, I have qualified or disqualified. So we as men, we got to take it back. Like, we have to take some of the power back and get the ball back in our court, because most men are not doing the things we're talking about now. So if you can flip it and you can start to be a little bit more bold and do these things, like, you will meet much better women than just only dating the women who are willing to message you back on a dating app. Because again, like, women can definitely shoot above their attraction number on dating apps, because there are a lot of guys out there that only want to hook up. And those guys will lower their standards a little bit just to hook up. So keep in mind that dating apps are always gonna be more competitive, right? You meet a girl in person, she's got a lot of investment in you.
Yeah, very true. Well, Evan, I appreciate you doing this. I hope the guys get a lot from it. I certainly have, and we'll try to apply some of it. Even though I've kind of put my energies elsewhere, but it wouldn't be terrible to find myself in another relationship it's sometime before I'm put to pasture. So I'll definitely listen to this one myself, which I rarely do. But thank you seriously for doing this. As you know, the last question I ask everybody is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man who has just started his divorce process?
I would say that you can't go back and you can't control the past. You can't change things that have already happened, but the only thing you can do is take this as a learning opportunity to start to fix yourself and work on yourself. But with that said, like, you are not broken. Like, you are a person with a lot to offer. And ultimately, the worst thing we can do is not take very difficult times as a learning lesson, right? Because when things are going really great in your life and things are easy and they're flowing and they're great, we're not really reflecting necessarily on why they're so great. We're only kind of critiquing our situation when things are going wrong.
Yeah.
So if you understand that people grow and they develop when things are really difficult, understand that this is probably one of the most difficult times in your life that you're going through. So you have to use it as a learning experience, and you have to understand not just why it happened, but what you can do to kind of improve in the future and to take a little bit more control and ownership of your life to not just prevent those things from happening in the future, but to really associate yourself with a woman or women that are on the same page as you, that take your feelings into account, that understand that you are valuable to whatever you're bringing to the equation, and really just use this as a learning experience. Because I think it would be a big mistake to only be really upset about it, but not actually change anything. So we have to look in the mirror and we have to see what we could change as men, and really just, starting to optimize your health, your mental health, and your finances too, and just taking ownership of what you can control in your life and becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah, amen. Ownership's a big one for me. I think that's what defines a man is his ability to take ownership of his life. Again, thank you so much for doing this. How can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch with Evan?
Yeah. So you can just search Performance Potential on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. Most of my following is on TikTok, just because I put a lot of short form content on there. I've got about 3 longer videos up right now at the time of us filming this podcast on YouTube, and I've got 15 more that are edited, and I'm posting twice a week for the next 2 months, and we're going to see how the YouTube algorithm pans out. But I think it'll be good to get this information and content in front of guys. It's more like long form content, because these 30 to 50-second sound bites on Instagram Reels and TikTok, they're helpful, but I think it's important to dive more in, on the nuances of everything too. So I would say anywhere: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, just search Performance Potential, or you can go to performancepotential.co if you want to be coached by me.
Gotcha. And I want to take this before we wrap up, just to say that Evan and I are going to be working together. We're in the midst of finalizing the creation of a Facebook group that will essentially be a subgroup of the Divorce Support for Men group on Facebook. So probably when this launches, that group will launch as well, and you guys can join and ask Evan questions and reach out to him and work with him and hire him. So again, I want to thank you for doing this. I thank you for being open and honest and connecting with me and working with me to help these guys get to their next best relationship. I appreciate it.
Amen. My pleasure.
Take care. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Thank you to Nick Coyle and Lifer for allowing me to use their song, Born Again, which you're hearing now and at the intro to the podcast. Thank you to Justin Dulahanty and all of my brothers at the Alpha Code. Please visit the website risingphoenixpodcast.com to connect with me and other like-minded men who are looking to thrive and grow after their divorce. And remember to surround yourself with people who add value to your life, who challenge you to be greater than you were yesterday, who sprinkle magic into your existence like you do to theirs. Life is not meant to be done alone. Find your tribe. Take care.